Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith in the studios of 89.3 Lakes FM. As always, today we are joined by 88.1 WBFH The Biff and Birmingham Area Municipal Access. In just a few minutes, we will also be joined on the Facebook page of the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's office. For now, we continue on the Civic Center TV Facebook page following the governor's press conference. And of course, from her home studio, here is Ronnie Dahl.
Tyler, thank you for being able to get the governor's press conference on the air for us here a little bit earlier. We know people can watch it everywhere, but we try to make it easy for them as well as they're coming on to watch the show. Really no big surprises coming out of this press conference. Of course, as you had just mentioned, or for those that maybe also didn't catch the press conference, the indoor dining at Michigan restaurants will be resuming on the 1st of February. However, as was expected, it is going to be coming with restrictions, those being 25% capacity, as well as that 10 p.m. curfew. Nightclubs right now, though, still are to remain closed. Another good thing coming out of this, concessions can return at theaters. But a lot more details about her press conference. Of course, she says she's going to continue to work with a lot of the restaurants, and they are trying to start up a fund as well to be able to help the restaurants improve their ventilation systems within their establishments.
Yeah, it looks like it's some sunlight here for these restaurants coming back at a very small capacity, mind you, much smaller than they were at before the COVID-19 pause to save lives that was issued in November, and previously when they had open indoor dining during this pandemic. But it's something. It's something at the very least. I think it's the state very much being cautious as they're reopening these industries to see, A, how is compliance going to be? Most likely going to be fine as it was before with these restaurant establishments. B, more importantly, how will the general public react and comply with these regulations in relation to these businesses? And hopefully they will be respectful of these businesses and understand what they've gone through, because people weren't necessarily always following those regulations before, both in these establishments and more frequently outside of these establishments, and gradually bringing these businesses back. Putting more regulation, continuing the regulations on nightclubs, I think is also a very good step in this, as that's a much less controlled environment than these restaurants, and has a great likelihood of being a super spreader situation where these restaurants, it's a very low likelihood. And then, of course, the fund to try to help some of these businesses improve their ventilation so that they can have an even safer environment. Also positive news. That being said, some of these things, such as the fund for the improved ventilation to help these businesses not only be more compliant, but create a safer, more COVID-safe environment, it's something that I feel like could have probably been done earlier on in this pandemic.
Yeah, and some of these businesses are going to argue that being able to reopen at 25% capacity is still not going to be enough for them to even be able to cover some of their expenses. So I would imagine that even though they're going to be allowed at that rate, that percentage rate, and that 10 p.m. curfew, some businesses we may see will remain closed throughout this time. However, the governor did stress that they are continuing the program through March to try to help support some of these businesses, and they're really pushing for people to continue to support local. So a lot of people still, Tyler, they're not going to feel comfortable going into a restaurant. And so that's okay. Everyone makes that own decision for themselves, but what she's asking for people to do is to still support your local restaurants by, if you can, order carryout, order takeout, do something, get a gift card, buy it as a gift for someone else. But we need to help continue to support some of these businesses as we continue on. One of the other things that came out, she did say that they are going to realign some of the capacity limits that have been set on the large stadiums throughout the state. I didn't see a mention of the number as to how many or what percentage they're going to allow for the stadiums. So, but the big concern here is as we reopen, could they second pause be in the works because of this new variant that is spreading through the area, starting in Washtenaw County. They've identified more cases there. So that, of course, is going to be a big concern. But they are saying that indeed this pause has in fact worked. We are down 10% of the hospital beds across the state are now being used for COVID-19 patients. They've been declining for over the past 7 weeks. The test rate is now at 6.8%. And again, the cases continue to decline over the past week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And that is what is leading to some of these decisions that the governor made today.
Yeah, I mean, as we've seen before, these regulations and these stoppages do help with these cases. And we've seen even after these regulations have been put in place at previous points of this pandemic, that they've continued the work as long as the general public has continued to take seriously those precautions that we've been using in our regular life since March, of wearing your mask, keeping your distance, washing your hands regularly, being mindful of when you need to be out in public and when you don't really need to, when you need to be going to a gathering, a small gathering or a moderate gathering or not, and being safe in those situations as well, and being mindful of other people. And I think it's another situation where we can continue to see these numbers drop without these regulations if people take that seriously, those things seriously, and continue to mindfully comply with these precautions that we've been following for 10 plus months. But my concern would be that with this variant being out there, being even more contagious, and as the governor and as Dr. Caldoun said, they're in a sort of a race against the clock to get more vaccines out without this spreading around, it's really going to come down to the general public to prevent further shutdowns from being put in place, especially with a much more contagious variant of COVID-19 being on the outs already.
I was really surprised that no one from the media asked the governor more details about her trip to DC and the inauguration, because obviously, we're talking about socially distance. Even while people were wearing masks, we did see a lot of people were not socially distanced. In fact, I think she took a picture, a selfie with her, and I'm assuming were her daughters, and posted it. So that's getting a lot of social media activity right now, people asking about some of those things. And also, would she be quarantined at all? Which we know, obviously, that she hasn't, because the press conference did look as if it were back at the state capitol there. So it's going to be interesting as we continue to go on. But one of the things that happens at some of these press conferences, just so the general public knows, the media is not allowed in the actual room. So they're asking their questions via Zoom. And so you have to submit your questions ahead of time, and then they pick, a handful of reporters to be able to ask their questions. But I'm sure that as the days continue to go on, some of those questions are going to be raised as well. But with that, as you were just mentioning and we were talking, is about the variant, the new strain that is started in the UK and is now moved to the United States and here in the local area as well. 2 more cases of the UK virus variant, as we've been saying, is believed to be more contagious. It's been identified in Washtenaw County. Now, 2 women were in close contact with the first person in the state to be diagnosed. It's the B117 variant strain. So all 3 individuals are associated with the University of Michigan, but they're not saying in what way, just that they're associated with U of M. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services announced the first case of the variant just this past Saturday. So the first person tested positive after traveling to the United Kingdom where it originated. 7 additional cases have now been linked to that one case. Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the County Health Department detected the additional cases of the variant at the U of M lab. Believed to be more contagious, state officials advised residents to continue what we've been hearing for the past 10 months, socially distance, wear a mask, and wash your hands often, and also ventilate your indoor spaces. So it is continuing. What is kind of alarming as well with that, I saw a story this morning on national news where there is yet another mutated strain in South Africa. and that one does not seem to be responding right now to the vaccine. So it's that could be a little bit of scary news for us today, as 2021's brought hope with the vaccine, but now there's the possibility of a new variant out there as well, Tyler.
Yeah, multiple new variants, definitely not great news. Something that is to be expected with a virus, especially a new virus, almost a year down the line, several months down the line, that there's going to be variations. That's the nature of any virus. That's why we have different flu vaccine every single year, because the influenza virus does vary over the course of several months. That being said, it's again, like the governor said, like Dr. Caldoon said, it's a race against the clock to contain these variants of the virus, especially seeing that UK variant has already made its way into the state of Michigan, into the United States, really close to us over in Washtenaw County. And then this other variant that's been found in South Africa so far is not responding to our current vaccines. All the more reason they're in South Africa to make sure that gets contained. And for other countries with people that are traveling from South Africa to do their part in being exceptionally cautious in bringing people in from South Africa that have not been properly tested or properly quarantined and cleared from that variant. And those that are working to assure those clearances and assure those precautions to ensure that this doesn't spread from one nation to another.
And with that, if you are getting on a plane, you now do have to indeed wear a mask. So
Yes.
Mask up or you won't be allowed to board a plane, train, or a bus. President Biden signed the executive order yesterday requiring passengers to wear face coverings during interstate travel. It's one of 10 executive orders signed by the president aimed at addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. Airlines and their employees have been seeking such a federal mask mandate since the pandemic began, as they've struggled to deal with passengers who refuse to follow the airline's own mask wearing rules. The U.S. Department of Transportation has received more than 150 safety complaints over passengers violating airline mask requirements. The airlines have tried to fight back by banning some of the passengers. Thousands of people have been banned from flying with them again for refusing to wear the mask. Delta has prohibited more than 880 passengers. United has banned more than 600, and Alaska more than 300. And of course, this mask mandate, the airlines are hoping it will make the public or help the public feel a little bit more comfortable about getting on a plane, because the travel industry has been one of the hardest hit throughout this pandemic, and they're hoping that it's going to ease some of those fears and people will start traveling once again.
Yeah, hopefully that is the case, because the airline industry definitely has been very negatively affected by this. Not much concern for those at the very top of these companies that are already making a large sum of dollars. Their jobs have not been too terribly affected by that. They've continued to get their paycheck, but it's those that are doing custodial work on the planes, those that work on the tarmac, flight attendants who are making money by the hour that the plane is on the ground and in the air, that have definitely been impacted by this. Having that mask mandate in place may make people feel more comfortable to get on those planes, and having those bans and those sort of a blacklist by these airlines for those that don't comply. I think it's also a necessary step here, and it also is something that could be helpful for these airlines in the future, because if you can't or you refuse to follow simple rules now, who's to say there aren't other rules that have been put in place for the safety of the aircraft and those aboard the aircraft later on that you may refuse to comply with also. And if you can't follow one simple rule, it's not exactly a stretch to say you're probably not going to care about most rules that are in place, so you shouldn't be allowed the privilege of being on an aircraft.
Oakland County, Tyler, has entered into a 6-month contract agreement to utilize the 420,000 square foot suburban collection showcase showplace rather, and Novi for COVID-19 vaccinations. It's going to start utilizing the facility tomorrow. They'll administer about 3,000 vaccinations to residents from 9 to 5 at the showplace. Keep in mind, though, all of those appointments were previously booked, so there will be no same day or drive-up appointments available. The owner of the showplace is allowing the county to utilize a large portion of the building for the vaccines rent-free through June 16th. The county is currently vaccinating eligible residents and workers from healthcare, long-term care, law enforcement, fire, and EMS, as well as education staff and individuals 65 years and older who live or work here in Oakland County. But again, you need an appointment, and those appointments are very hard to get right now. They are booked through the end of February unless the county is able to secure more doses of the vaccine. But they do have a new place to start to administer these vaccinations, which could become a very important part of this puzzle as we continue on, and their goal of trying to vaccinate as many people here in the state of Michigan by the summertime.
Yeah, a large facility in Novi, like the Suburban Collection Showplace, helps to alleviate some of that log jam that we've had with these appointments for COVID-19 vaccinations in Oakland County. Will certainly make for more space available when we do, if and when we do see more of these vaccines become available in the state of Michigan and in Oakland County specifically, for people to get vaccinated and hopefully get us closer to where we were hoping to be and where we really were aiming to be at this point in the pandemic, or maybe at the very least provide some reason for positivity down the line, where we are not extending this pandemic and these precautions out any further than we absolutely have to, and we can get back on some sort of a consistent track by help of organizations and locations like the Suburban Collection.
So with that, just as a reminder, you can always find the latest headlines, civiccentertv.com. Click on coronavirus. We have a lot to talk about again today. Tyler, a little bit later in the show, I want to get your opinion on some of the memes that are going around about Bernie Sanders. I have been cracking up. They have been hilarious. Yeah. We'll fill you in on that a little bit later. And also Portnoy, the owner of Barstool Sports, we mentioned him a couple weeks ago, and he has a fundraiser where he is trying to give money to restaurants. He's actually in town right now because today starts online betting is going to be legal in the state of Michigan starting today, and he's been in town, so we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But first, we're going to take a quick break because we still have a lot to get to, and we're running a little bit late today due to the governor's press conference. So when we come back, we'll be joined by Debbie Binder. She's the West Bloomfield Township Clerk. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
The only way to beat COVID-19 is to face it.
You can't get too comfortable.
You can't forget the danger.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask. Wash your hands.
Keep a safe distance.
Especially in the next few months.
You know we'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
Someday.
But not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But not yet.
But not yet.
Consider virtual gatherings for the holidays.
Curbside food orders.
Grocery delivery.
And shopping local.
Shop local.
And especially shopping local.
Let's beat this virus. We can if we face it together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
For the latest information, visit oakgov.com/COVID.
Excited to have you with us here on the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. It is only, what is the day today? I feel like I'm living in Groundhog
It is January 22nd.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I feel like it's like the middle of March. You know, we are only into the new year, but the days are dragging on, but the weeks do fly by. That's the crazy thing on how all of this works. But just as a reminder, you can catch Tyler and I 10 a.m. to noon, Monday through Friday. Catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. If you have cable, Channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T. You can also tune us into the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The BIP. And also we want to say thank you to the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's office for allowing us to live stream today's edition of the Megacast on their Facebook page. We always appreciate it. And with that, let's bring in the West Bloomfield Township Clerk, Debbie Binder. Always great to have you with us here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Ronnie. It's always a pleasure to be here and join you and Tyler and talk. It really is a wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
So we have the election behind us. What are your goals for 2021 for the West Bloomfield Township's Clerk's office?
Well, we're still, we've been catching up, and we're still participating in some of the post-election audits that take place. So it's behind us, but we're using some of that now as some of the time that we have, because we're obviously not as busy as we were during the election, to prepare for the upcoming election. We don't know yet if we're going to have an election this year. We do have an indication that one of our school districts may have an election in May, so we'll start gearing up for an election fairly quickly. So we're going to start though preparing as though we have the, being ready to have that election, but we still are concluding with the what's called a risk limiting audit for the last election for November. So that's what we've been doing, but we are doing our normal clerk's office processes, which include fertilizer permits, are busy right now, massage establishment permit licenses, solicitors licenses, things that normally kind of pick up gearing for spring are starting to pick up. Garage sales have definitely quieted down in a COVID environment. We get some, but we're not as busy with that. And we are preparing to bring back our passport services, because that was something that we had to shut down for a little bit. We are going to, on February 1st, we will begin offering passport services again. Initially, we're going to offer them to residents, but we will be taking a list of non-residents who are interested, because we know many places are not offering non-residents an opportunity right now. So we will be taking a list, and as we have openings and availability, we will contact non-residents to slot them into those times.
Debbie, what services are available through your office that are online, and which ones do people actually need to come into the building for?
A lot of them, it's probably best to call. The passport services are definitely, you have to come in. The other licenses and permits, mostly garage sales you have to come in for. The others you could make contact by phone, and we can handle some of it by phone. And as long as what we find is there's a level of getting incomplete applications that then somebody often has to run in last minute to submit. But for the most part, there are certain things that can be done online. Best thing to do if you're looking for one of those is to call my office and speak to the person directly that handles it. And they can make sure you know exactly what you need and what you can do via email and what you do need to come in for. It has been quiet. It is, if somebody's worried about coming in, I can honestly say it has been quiet at the counter. So you won't feel like you're coming into a really busy, crowded environment.
Because people are still uneasy. I feel like there is a lot of pandemic fatigue going on right now, but a lot of people are still uneasy about coming into an actual building. What feedback are you getting from members of the community?
The feedback we're getting is really that they're confident with the precautions we're taking. People are respectful. We have an educated population. They're coming in with their masks on. We have plexiglass fully covering each of the windows. So there's areas to conduct transactions below that, but there's a clear screen. We have had very positive feedback. People feel comfortable coming in. Parking is easy. The building is not crowded. It is very manageable. And a lot of if anybody calls us, we're going to let them know what a busy time is and what a not busy time is. And we're going to make every effort that we can to accommodate that person. And obviously, if there's an extraordinary case and there's a health issue, we can conduct curbside services. We really are out to make things as easy as possible and as for our residents and as safe as possible. I think that would be the feedback, Ronnie. I think people would tell you that we conduct a safe environment and they feel relatively safe coming in here.
Yeah, Township Supervisor Steve Kaplan has reminded us that the township offices have remained open during this time, but a lot of times it's just that communication. You need to call and try to find out some of the information on what works best for you as an individual. With that, Debbie, if we can go back to the election, it was like one that was it was just crazy. I think everyone is happy that it is over with, but with that, while we often talk about the volunteers that are needed on election day, are there opportunities for regular people to also volunteer throughout the year just to kind of learn more about the process?
I don't know if we have volunteer opportunities as much throughout the year, because when we're not in an election, we're not really doing election activities. But if anybody's interested, one of the best ways to learn about elections is to work elections. And we don't just take people on election day. We do bring in a temporary crew beforehand that help with the volume of absentee ballots we get. So if somebody's really interested in getting involved, it's an opportunity. Contact my office and find out what the opportunities will be next with the next election that we have. This year is not going to be as busy. Even if we have a school district election, it just won't be as busy as last year was. This past year, we had a presidential primary, then we had a state primary, and then we had a state general. So we had 3 large elections in one year that required a lot more hands on deck to just conduct the business at hand. This year, the elections will be special elections or school district elections and won't be of that same size. Next year in 2022, we're going to see the gubernatorial again. So we will have a state primary and a state general. It will be a large election year. I don't think we're going to see small elections any longer. Our permanent absent voter application list, which is a list we keep of people who want to be sent an application for an absent voter application, not a ballot. But that list, since Proposal 3, before Proposal 3, it went from about 8,000 people to about 11,000 people. And then with COVID and the efforts to recruit people in COVID, it's gone up to 24,000 people. That's almost half of our registered voters are now on that permanent voter application list. So those people will all receive notification via an application. I don't think we're going to see elections go back to being small again. So I think you will see large turnout going forward.
How do you update the voter registration list?
Okay, it's done by a bunch of different means. Some at the state level, some they take records. So there's death records, there's social security records, and there's a database that works between different states called ERIC that updates when people move. But when we're working on the database for Michigan, we're working in one singular state database. So if somebody were to move within the state, it automatically updates to where they move to. Now, as far as being on the voter roll, one of the questions we get, because a lot of these applications and the letters from the Secretary of State went to people who had moved out of state. And the best way to describe something is you wouldn't want your neighbor being able to call my office because they didn't like how you were going to vote and saying, well, I'm sure Ronnie moved out of town. Well, that's funny. Ronnie didn't let us know she moved. Oh, no, I know she did. So you wouldn't want it to be that easy for somebody to take somebody off the voter roll. So to get removed from the voter roll, we either have to have as one of those state agencies informing us, which we do get informed, an obituary that shows that someone is deceased. Or if we hear that somebody may have moved, we send what's called a pink cancellation card. This is not a West Bloomfield process. This is an election law process. We send what's called a pink cancellation card to the registered address of that voter. If the voter responds with a matching signature, they stay on the voter roll. If they don't respond, they go into what's called a cancellation countdown, where if we don't hear from that voter over that cancellation countdown period, they are then removed from the voter roll. But that cancellation countdown period is 4 years. It's 2 full election cycles. So it's a 4-year countdown. But what's important to remember is that voter is not going to get a ballot unless we get a signature verified application. So there's a very big difference in that application. And again, I can't stress enough that people don't want it to be so easy to remove someone from the voter roll that they could just call and remove their neighbor. What tends to happen, one of our biggest areas that gets enhanced or plumped, I would say the list is people whose kids grow up and move out of state, and the family still lives there, and no one has ever notified us that child has moved out of town. So I have received quite a few calls, especially as there's been more awareness this year of the issue. We've received more calls from parents that said, I'm getting this for my child. My child hasn't lived here in 10 years. Well, all we have them do is have their kids send us a signature verified request. Please remove me from your voter roll, and we remove them from the voter roll. So that's real. And I think the opportunity this year of all of the people that were engaged by the Secretary of State with COVID will be that voter roll gets cleaned up, because more people will be aware that they're on that roll that didn't realize that they were still on the voter roll. But again, important reminder, if we don't get a signature verified application, no ballot is sent.
It can sound confusing to so many people, but really when you break it down into the steps, it's pretty simplistic as well. People just get lost and taking the time to try to figure out all the steps and what you actually do with that. Debbie Binder here with us on the Megacast. She's the West Bloomfield Township Clerk. With that, Debbie, I'm really hoping 2021 is a much quieter year for you and your staff.
We are too. This was definitely a long one, but if anybody has questions, one thing I could say, Ronnie, that you provide for us, that many communities are not as fortunate to have a program like you are. The key ingredient that's missing in so many cases is voter education. An educated and informed voter is very often a comforted voter. And we are fortunate to have the means to reach our voters, including through your broadcast. So voter education is one of the key areas that we would like to continue to focus on, and hopefully continue to procure some grant money that will allow us to increase our spending in that area so that we can educate voters. But again, you provide a tremendous opportunity for us to have that community outreach and voter education that is just critical, especially in this day and age. But yes, we would like a quiet 2020.
Well, and one of the good things that I hope comes out of this crazy year that we just went through, because with COVID too, it even took on a new importance and a new conversation as well, because we're adding the pandemic on top of that. But it's just what you said, voter education. People are paying more attention, and I think they have ever before. And it was so polarizing, but at the same time, people were looking at the process, but not only that, the individuals running as well. So instead of just marking an X for the female candidate or the Irish candidate or a name that candidate, they were taking time to actually research some of the individuals that were running for office as well. And so we do hope that continues going forward. That could be the silver lining that comes out of this.
Yes. And one thing just to remind people as we talk about, there are I think that some of that voter education, that people aren't aware how many steps there are that go into the voting process to start with, in preparation and after. We do a public accuracy test where we publicly test the machines to confirm that the machines are accurate. And then you have the County Board of Canvassers audits every jurisdiction in every precinct in every jurisdiction in Oakland County, all 62 of them. The State Board of Canvassers then certifies those results and verifies the numbers. And then we also have city and state audits done by random selection. And then we implemented this year at the state level this risk limiting audit that is basically a verification of the election outcomes based on random samplings. It's using statistics. So there are many more levels of verification than people realize that go on in elections. Common understanding is we put out a ballot box and collect the ballots and we count them, and that's an election. If anyone saw the 3 months of preparation and the 1 month of follow-up, an election for a clerk's office is a 4-month event that takes place in preparation. And again, there's just so many layers and levels of auditing and verification that takes place. Best way to learn it is to get involved, work in elections, see the process, and the most reassuring thing I can offer to anybody.
Well, Debbie, we always appreciate the work that you and the members of your team did getting us through the election, but also we're hoping that you enjoy, fingers crossed, a little bit of downtime as we go into 2021. Thank you again, Debbie, for being with us. Always great to talk with you.
Thank you, Ronnie. Always a pleasure to serve. We're here to serve and we're available. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to share some information.
Anytime you want to come on, because you are just a wealth of knowledge. I've learned so much being able to talk with you throughout this process. So thank you as well.
Thank you. Have a great, happy, healthy new year.
Same to you. It is weird. It's like 2021, but I don't know. It just seems like we've been in this year forever already. Right. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, and when we come back, we are going to be joined with the head of school for Oakland Early College. It's such a great program, so we're excited to talk about that. That's going to come up on the backside of this break. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test, and now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our Test Locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs, even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary. We've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Perry tested positive for COVID-19. Emma was exposed to a friend who's positive. Willa's waiting on test results. After any contact with COVID-19, or if you test positive, stay home for at least 10 days. If you live with others, keep your distance and wear a mask. Help Michigan contain COVID-19. Visit michigan.gov/containcovid.
We appreciate your time on this Friday. This is the Oakland County Megacast. As always, catch us on civiccentertv.com. If you, for some reason, have passed or missed some of our previous interviews, because I'm sure all of you out there can't dedicate 2 hours of your day, Monday through Friday, to sit here and watch the Megacast. But I will say, if you get the opportunity, go to civiccentertv.com, because you can watch previous episodes of the Megacast going all the way back to the beginning of last March when they started the show, but also individual interviews as well, because the information changes daily, but we're also able to speak to so many great people, our political leaders, our decision makers, and individuals throughout our community as we continue to navigate COVID-19 and all of their perspectives. Yesterday, we had a great interview with Gleaners as well as Covenant House, but also with the owner of the greenhouse in Walled Lake. So we tried to bring you different interviews in a long interview form. So you can find all of that information on civiccentertv.com. And with us now, Ashleigh Larkin. She's the head of the school at Oakland Early College. Ashleigh, the last time we had you on, you had just started the position. How are you doing? How are you adjusting?
Yes. Hi, Ronnie. Thank you for having me. It's definitely been an adjustment in this environment. I will say in education, I never thought I would have to think about contact tracing and sanitizing and everything else that we're thinking about. But the staff and students and everyone at the college through Oakland Early College have really been very welcoming and helpful. And so it's been a positive transition.
How do you layer in those new issues and those new requirements as more and more students start to return to the classroom?
There's a lot of late nights, I will say. So, the district has really been great in putting out specific processes for each building. And so they've given great direction and guidance, and we've been able to follow the plans that were mandated for the district. So it's been a pretty smooth process overall in terms of incorporating those things into our daily routine.
So while we know you've been in education for quite some time, you're still new to this position. Happy 2021, and how is it going so far?
Thank you. Same to you. It's been going well. I think there still is some anxiety about everything going on, but I think there's also a sense of hope and renewed energy for things to come. And so we're trying to capitalize on that and really provide a positive environment for everyone involved.
And you know what, Ashley, if we can actually kind of back up just a little bit, because we've interviewed you before and also other individuals about Oakland Early College, but anyone that may be joining us for the first time, can you give us a little bit of a background on Oakland Early College?
Absolutely. So Oakland Early College is a high school. It is on OCC's Orchard Ridge campus. So we're actually housed in the H building on campus in Farmington Hills. All of our students are dual enrolled. So they take high school classes at the same time they'll be taking college courses. Our students can earn at a minimum 30 credits to transfer to a college or university, all the way up to an associate's degree by the end of their 13th year.
This is like one of the best programs out there. And I think there are so many students and so many parents that I don't know if they realize that it's out there, but also the value in it. Can you imagine graduating high school and you already have basically your associate's degree? Like, that is such a huge head start in life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a fantastic program. Our students really value their education. They're excited about the opportunity that they have. And we are in our recruiting and marketing season. So, we definitely want to make sure that people know about our school and the opportunities that exist.
So tell us who does qualify and how can they, because I would imagine there is a selection process as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So we're able to take students entering 9th grade all the way through the end of first semester of 11th grade. If they are a 9th grade student, they must have completed Algebra 1 already in their 8th grade year. So that is a requirement. Typical grade point average is anywhere from a 2.0 to a 4.0. We really view, several different factors when considering acceptance for a student. So they first have a family meeting with me where we get to know one another and we talk about the ins and outs of the program. If they feel like it might be the right fit for them, the second step is a formal interview with myself, the counselor at OEC, and typically about 3 students from OEC. And then from there, they would send in grades, attendance, transcripts, essays. They do have to write a few essays if they're applying. And we would review all of that before making a decision on acceptance.
So, and Ashleigh, how many students are accepted into the program each semester? Is it by semester?
It is by semester. We definitely accept more students for the first semester, the start of the year, than we do the second semester. Just as an example, we have 4 students coming in for the second semester that will be new to us. But typically it's anywhere from 40 upwards of about 60 students per class that we would welcome in.
And do they have to just be students at West Bloomfield, or is it open to other school districts as well? How does that work?
It's open to any student in Oakland County.
I just think this is great. And I do understand, like, normally they would actually go to the college campus, but that's not happening right now because of the pandemic. Are all of the classes right now remote? What's it looking like for some of these students who are getting into the program for the first time?
Mm-hmm. So all of the college classes are remote. OCC will be remaining remote through the end of this term. They're still talking about what summer term is going to look like. So we're not sure about that yet. But currently they are all virtual. And then we will be welcoming students back for high school classes next Thursday.
Can you just think about that? Like, these high school students have not been on the high school campus since last March. They're going to have, I think a lot of them are going to appreciate actually having to get up and get dressed and change out of their pajamas and going to school for the first time in a year. So, when you take something away, you appreciate it more when you get it back, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And our students are very lucky because of the size of the school. They were able to return in the fall. So they were in session until November and then had to go home when the district went virtual again. So, but it's been a 10-week time frame. So we said it's almost been like a summer off, and we're welcoming them back again.
So for the students that are able to get into the program, what is it like for them? Do they have very specific classes that they have to take? Are they like prerequisite classes? And how does that transfer over into their high school transcripts?
So our students all have to follow the Michigan Merit Curriculum for high school students. So they would take the same classes based on high school courses that any other student would in Oakland County to meet all of their requirements for the state. And then depending on whatever field they're interested in or whatever their path might be, they would meet with a college counselor to determine which classes they should take.
I always think I'm kind of like Doogie Howser. Like I'm in high school, but I'm in college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But with that, in some of their classes, because they're not actually going on to the college campus right now, but if they don't keep up their grades, can they fail out of the program?
It's very, very rare. I think that, the whole process of family meeting, interview, reviewing everything really ensures that not only is it the right fit for the student, but it's also the right fit for OEC and OCC. And so I think that that's why that process is so important, is because we definitely know that we're getting students that are committed to the program and that will benefit from the program.
Is there an additional cost to the student and their family members to be able to take part in this?
There is no additional cost. It is tuition free, so the students do not pay tuition. And we also pay for any required textbooks. The only fees that the family would incur is if the particular course requires a consumable item. So just as a quick example, if they're enrolled in a culinary program and they have to buy their chef's coat, that's something that the family would be responsible for.
But still, when you take this into consideration and the high cost of college right now, even at community college, a family can really save a lot of money if they're able to take advantage of this program.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that piece is huge. And not only the cost saving, but our students really have an advantage in that they're learning how to navigate college before many other students will. And so they know who to talk to, they know the right avenues, to channel. And so they're really at an advantage in that regard.
I know that you're fairly new to this position as well, but are you able to share with us what has been the interest in this program, like previous pandemic and now post-pandemic or in the middle of the pandemic? Are more students trying to look into trying to take advantage of this, or not so much because they want that college experience, which they're not really getting remotely? It's kind of like, hey, I'm in another remote class, just like high school.
Mm-hmm. So to be honest with you, we're just picking up in that season. So we don't have the data yet on pre-pandemic and in the middle of the pandemic. But I will tell you that we've had several calls. I have several family meetings on my calendar and interviews scheduled. And so I know that we'll be seeing the same numbers, if not a greater number of students that are interested in the program.
Ashleigh, what are you looking for when accepting these students?
So when accepting students, we really look to our crest, which we have 3 pillars on our crest, which are college, culture, and community. So we want students that are dedicated to their education. We want students that are givers, not takers. So students that contribute to society and want to participate in service learning projects. And we also want students that are kind, good people, that are accepting and really willing to work with students of diverse backgrounds. And so those would be the types of student that we're looking for.
But how has that conversation kind of changed during the pandemic? Because maybe there were a lot of students that would have gone out and volunteered, but they haven't during the pandemic. And maybe it's because out of interest of a family member or loved one that lives with them, that they're concerned about their safety. So is that area open for conversation for some of these students to be able to explain maybe their lack of volunteerism during this time?
Absolutely. We talk about, even if you're not going out into the world right now and doing some type of service, how are you serving at home, right? If you have siblings, how are you helping your parents or guardians with your siblings? How are you contributing to what's going on in your household? And so it can definitely be smaller scale right now, but we just want to make sure that there's a mentality of thinking of others.
So I'm guessing, how did you help your siblings? If you say, well, I tied them up and put tape over their mouth so they'd be quiet so I could get through the day, wouldn't be a good thing to add to that application.
Probably not. No, probably something more along the lines of helping with remote learning, maybe playing a board game with them to entertain them for parents in the evening, something like that would be great.
Actually, I have to tell you, I come from a family of 9, and my twin sister and I were the youngest. So the stories we could tell you, but it's a good thing that we were older, because today people would be like, what? Back in the day, it was just like, yeah, that's what you did.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have video games to entertain us. We had to entertain ourselves.
Right.
Ashleigh Larkin with us here on the Megacast. She's the head of the school over at Oakland Early College. It is such an incredible program. Ashleigh, quickly before we let you go, is there a deadline for students to be able to apply for this?
So we actually are currently working on what that deadline will be, but we will interview and look at students all the way typically up through June and July. And so, students have several months here to apply.
Well, thank you so much. Anything quickly that I didn't ask that maybe you want to share before we let you go?
I'm very proud to be part of this school. Like you said, it's an amazing opportunity for students. We have amazing staff here. The culture and the community that has been present and has been created in this building is just amazing. And so I would love to talk to any student and their family that's interested in joining and being a part of that.
It really is an amazing program, and it can save families so much money. But on top of that, too, the students get a jump on their college education as well. So Ashleigh, thank you for being with us, and we wish you continued success in 2021.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
We're going to take a quick break here in the Megacast. When we come back, still a lot to get to in the second hour when the Oakland County Megacast returns.
Hi, my name is Curt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask. Wear a mask.
The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Here on the Friday edition of the Megacast. As a reminder, you're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. You can catch Tyler or myself Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. Tune us in or check us out, civiccentertv.com, which makes it very easy, Birmingham area municipal access. But you can also tune us in if you have cable, channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T. We also want to say thank you to the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's office for allowing us to live stream today's edition of the Megacast on their Facebook page. And with that, let's just jump into the second hour. With us today, our returning friend, Curt Lawson. He's the Deputy Chief over at the West Bloomfield Police Department. Always great to have you with us, Curt. How are you?
I'm great, Ronnie. How are you?
Good. I hope you had a happy and healthy holiday season, and Happy New Year to you as well.
Well, thankfully it was healthy. So the whole family's still healthy, and we're still taking those protocols, wearing our masks when we go out. So far, so good.
With that, I will say it's been a while since we've been able to actually speak with you, but if we can kind of just go back a couple weeks, January 6th, and knowing that you have a long history in law enforcement, but when you saw the events unfold at the nation's capital, what were your thoughts?
Well, I think like most people, it was a little bit of a shock. What am I seeing? Is this really happening? How can this be happening? From a law enforcement standpoint, I'm looking at it as that there's failures on several points. Obviously, where was the data analysis? How did you not know that this was a potentially could have occurred? Like the signs were out there. It was being reported in the media. It was all over social media that there was going to be a demonstration. Some people are openly talking about going into the Capitol. So the information was there. And then why wasn't law enforcement prepared? We always look at major events that we prepare for as like, it's like an iceberg. What the public sees is just the tip, but what's below that is all the planning. We look at all the what ifs to make sure that we have enough individuals there, that we have security fencing, that we're doing surveillance, that we have camera systems set up. And it doesn't look like any of that was done. And certainly there was no coordination of resources. In case something were to happen where they were overwhelmed with personnel, they should have had a backup plan so they could have brought more individuals in to help them quickly. And that wasn't done either. So there was a failure at multiple points. And I certainly would say, and I've said this before, it always goes back to leadership, and they have to own it and they have to learn from it.
And that's part of it, right? You step up, and some of the lawmakers or some of the individuals that were leading the law enforcement agencies have done just that, and they've resigned their positions. But Curt, I'm with you. I was sitting back going, how is this even happening? But I also know that when you're in the middle of a situation like that, as a lot of people know, I was caught up in the riots in downtown Cleveland. And part of that was they said, well, we've always had peaceful protest in the past. Well, once it turns sideways, there's that delay in action of being able to call people, get them dressed and get them to a scene, and then get them organized to respond. And by that time, minutes count. And I think that's exactly one of those situations that we witnessed at the nation's capital.
Well, unfortunately, circumstances like this, it is a learning experience. And I know all the law enforcement leaders that I talk to, they're all looking at this. What went wrong? What could have gone better? And in the future, we have protests, potential protests. Let's make sure that this does not happen again.
Yeah, and that is one of the good things that comes out of these situations is they are used as teaching mechanisms to make sure they don't happen again. And so that is kind of a silver lining that comes out of that. But, you know, we're very lucky to kind of live in the community in which we live because we have not experienced situations like that. We did have a few of the protests throughout the summer months, but they've all been very peaceful and respectful as well.
Right. And so for even our protests, we had a Black Lives Matter protest that was at Orchard Maple, walked down to our police department. And from all the information that we had, it was going to be a very peaceful demonstration of about 1,000 people. But we certainly had significant layers of security and plans in place in case something went wrong, in case there was a few agitators. How are we going to deal with that? So you just got to plan, and plan some more.
Plan for the worst, hope for the best. And it's like you said, the general public never understands the level of what goes in behind the scenes to try to prepare and protect during these situations as well. So with that and with your team and also the resources it takes as well, there is a debt of gratitude. I think so many people are starting to understand the vital importance of law enforcement and the difference that people such as yourself make within our community. And with that, though, if we can kind of shift the conversation a little bit, sure. Obviously 2021, it's all about the vaccination. I know members of the law enforcement community are now qualified to be able to start getting vaccinated. Have members of the team over there at the West Bloomfield Police Department been able to get the vaccination yet?
Well, some have not. So as you know, in Michigan, we have 10 million residents here and about 550,000 have got the vaccine. it's been difficult to get in Oakland County. There's been about 15,000 doses available and 8,000 of those have been administered. So a very low number. We did not hear anything about a vaccine that was available to us until last week. And we went up to Hurley Hospital in Flint, and they provided a substantial number of our officers the first round of vaccine shots. And I just got off the phone literally 5 minutes before I got on with you with Homeland Security here in Oakland County, and they're offering up some vaccines for up to 40 of our officers tomorrow. So we're standing by the phone waiting for the vaccines to arrive, and then as soon as we can get our people vaccinated, we're going to do so.
It really is kind of crazy behind the scenes. It seems like it's kind of being patched together as to who's getting it, when you're getting it, and how it's going. But at the end of the day, you jump at the opportunity because you don't know when that opportunity is coming again. Have you been able to get vaccinated yet?
So I did go to Hurley. Myself and Lieutenant Tilley, who I think you've met before on your great program, we went up together. It was literally, we were there probably 20 minutes. It was a very short line, very efficient. The needle wasn't too big, which I was really relieved about. Not a lot of pain as far as the shot itself. I did have some tenderness, and so I was a little bit tired after the shot, but all in all, no major side effects whatsoever.
So you've only had the one shot, right? The first shot?
Correct. The second one I have is the second week of February.
I will say, when I watch the video of people getting the shot, that needle looks like it's like that big. And I am such a baby when it comes to getting shots. And most of the people that we talked to that have been vaccinated, they seem to be having more issues on the second shot, more so than the first one. That's why I'm happy to be at the back of the line for this, because hopefully by that time, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is going to be approved, and that's just one shot, because that I might be able to sit through. But Curt, can you talk about the importance about having the vaccine? Because you guys are in contact with so many people, and you can't say no to people. You have to be there to respond.
So it is important. I think it's in the overall process here of us getting through COVID-19. Vaccination is a big part of that. It goes along with the social distancing and the masks. Now, when COVID-19 reared its ugly head, we were very fortunate. A lot of our officers did not get sick. But I can tell you in the last month or so, we've had a lot of our officers getting sick. We've had a couple officers that actually were, or at least one officer that was actually hospitalized. So this is a serious thing, and we're definitely encouraging our officers to get that vaccine. And we're doing everything we can to get them in line and to make sure that happens. So hats off to the West Bloomfield Fire Department. They are actually working with the county to have a vaccination point at the West Bloomfield High School and at Fire 1, possibly as early as next week. Now you have to sign up through the county, and I believe there's about 16,000 people on that waiting list. But we're trying to get more sites for people to go to get that vaccine. And I know the new administration was talking about 100 million vaccinations in the next 100 days. So, but what's really important about making that happen is making sure that the vaccines, one, is available, and two, that we have enough sites to get people vaccinated.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of logistical issues rolling this out. We've already seen that, but hopefully as more and more vaccines come available, people are going to be able to find it as well. Hey, Curt, just another minute or two, because I know that you're busy. But before we let you go, I'm seeing that you are now the vice chair for the West Bloomfield Youth Assistance. What exactly is that program?
So West Bloomfield Youth Assistance has been around for decades, and that program is all about the kids. So it's based mostly within the high schools, and what they do is when kids get themselves in trouble, which kids can do, and they're minor infractions, whether it's alcohol, smoking, marijuana use. Instead of putting them into the criminal justice system, a youth assistant steps up. We provide counseling, we monitor them, make sure that they get whatever they need to get their life back on track. And that's what West Bloomfield Youth Assistance is all about. And there are youth assistants all over Oakland County, and the statistics show us that they're very successful. And we're very fortunate here in West Bloomfield that it's very well funded by the township, by the school district, as well as privately. So it's a great group to be a part of, and I'm proud to be on their board and a volunteer at the events that they do.
That is such a great program because for some of these kids, it could sideline their entire futures. Where when we were kids back in the day, like, you didn't have a cell phone that could take a picture or take a video. If you were caught underage drinking, not that I ever was, the alcohol was taken away. Now some of these kids are losing scholarships, and it can sideline their futures over some of these things. So it really is a great program, and it benefits the kids, but it also benefits the community as well. So thank you to you and the other volunteers for being a part of this program.
Interesting, Ronnie, is one of the things that COVID-19 has done, another negative, is that we used to hold the food truck rally at the Orchard Mall, and that was for West Bloomfield Youth Assistance, and we were getting thousands and thousands of people to attend this event. And obviously in 2020, we couldn't have it, and we might not be able to have it in 2021, but we're hoping, fingers crossed, 2022.
Fingers crossed. I think we're all ready to get back to some type of normalcy going at least into the summer, right? Hey, quickly before I let you go though, I have to tell you, so we were talking a little bit about the Bernie meme because the Troy Police Department has a great one. They actually made national news, the Troy Police Department, when they did a search for a police cat instead of a police dog, and Pulsifer Donut is become widely popular across the entire United States. And they had a great meme of Bernie Sanders, which has gone viral right now, all the memes with him, and he's holding Pulsifer Donut. But you were just informing me, I'm pulling up yours now. That is a great one as well. So anyone, I don't know if I can actually show that. If you can go on to the West Bloomfield Police Department's Facebook page, you'll see their creativity with some of this too. But Curt, I will say the one thing that's good about the social media is it's serious, but it's also a good way for members of your team to share with the community about the good work that all the people that are a part of the police department are doing. But on top of that, you can have a little fun because you're people at the end of the day as well.
Exactly right. So when we began social media, it was about a year conversation with the chief to kind of get him on board with this. But once we started it and once he began to understand the power of this tool, and really it's a lot about not only about information sharing, but it's also about marketing. And we kind of go head to head with Troy PD quite a bit. We're kind of the two powerhouses on social media. So, they did a great job, absolutely great job with Pulsifer, their cat, who I quite frankly, I wanted to kidnap because he drives me crazy, but they do an absolutely amazing job. And we're doing our best to compete, and we try to outdo them when we can. And we definitely wanted to get Bernie out there as well, which I'm sure when the chief checks that out in the next hour or two, he's going to be calling me. But it's fun to put stuff out there, and it gives people a laugh, and it kind of humanizes the badge of it.
But I will say, maybe we should catnap Pulsifer Donut. Not that we would ever actually do that. But I will say, the good thing about this, though, it really is, it's not about making people laugh, but it's that connection and putting a human being behind the badge and connecting the public. And that is what is so important and so needed right now as well. Wouldn't you agree?
100% agree, and I think we've been pretty successful at it, and it's because of the great team that we have that operates our social media platform. So hats off to them.
So I'm trying to think of what animal you guys should adopt to try to beat
had a
the
lot
cat.
of discussion everywhere, everything from I'd get a goat to an ostrich. I want to outdo Troy, so we got to find something good.
Get one of those turkeys off of Orchard Lake Road and just adopt that.
No, I was also thinking you could have a lot of fun. One time, the Michigan Humane Society, I did a story with them because they had a rescued pig. It was a potbelly pig. But they're dressing little piggies up so cute right now. Come on, cops and pigs. That would definitely go viral.
That I would definitely be on CNN and Fox News if we did that. But I'm not sure I'm going to convince the chief of that right now.
Okay, when you become the next chief, we're going to make it happen.
We'll talk.
I could adopt it. I'll at least buy it outfits. How's that?
Sounds great.
Needs a little police outfit. With that, Curt Lawson with us. He's the deputy chief over at the West Bloomfield Police Department. Curt, anything you want to add before we let you go?
Well, just a reminder to our residents to please lock your cars. We've seen quite a few, we call them LFAs or larceny from vehicles, where you have kids out in the neighborhoods at night and they're looking for unlocked cars, and they'll go in, they'll take your wallet, any other valuables. So please lock your cars. Besides that, things have been going pretty good, knock on wood, here in West Bloomfield. And thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
It's great having you, and we wish you and members of the department over there the best in 2021. Let's hope it's a quiet year, right?
I agree.
Curt Lawson with us, Deputy Chief for the West Bloomfield Police Department. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our Test Locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
The only way to beat COVID-19 is to face it.
You can't get too comfortable.
You can't forget the danger.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask. Wash your hands.
Keep a safe distance.
Especially in the next few months.
You know we'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
Someday.
But not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But not yet.
But not yet.
Consider virtual gatherings for the holidays.
Curbside food orders.
Grocery delivery.
And shopping local.
Shop local.
And especially shopping local.
Let's beat this virus. We can if we face it together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
For the latest information, visit oakgov.com/COVID.
We so appreciate you taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl. Tyler Keith is back at the studios there in West Bloomfield. For those that may be tuning in for the first time, we tried to share the story and how the show actually developed. And it was way back in March when they were first starting to talk about the pandemic. Things started to close down. And so Dave, Scott, and Tyler came together to come up with this platform and this program. And the design really, and the thought process is that we want to be able to bring you interviews of some of the decision makers, individuals here in our community, our elected leaders, but also the businesses, and share with you how the pandemic is impacting them, but also all of the changes. Because what was expected to be just 2 weeks and then got extended to a month, and now we're more than 10 months into the programming as well. Everything changes day by day as well. So while we may have some people on multiple times, it's because the information is changing as well. Sometimes it's hourly, sometimes it's daily, but that is really kind of the goal behind the Oakland County Megacast. And we pride ourselves in being able to bring you some of these interviews in a long interview format, because when you're tuning into the local news, you're getting things broken down into 10 to 15 second sound bites. And we are able to bring you those interviews in their complete form. And so if by chance you did miss some of the previous interviews or some of the previous megacasts, you can always find them on civiccentertv.com. Not only the full megacast going all the way back to this past March, but also some of the clips and the interviews as well. And we've had some really interesting guests on our show as well. And with that, now we are going to bring in our next guest. We haven't had her on the show before, so I'm excited to be able to speak with her. Brittany Rhodes, she is with the founder of the Black
Ronnie, it appears you have been inadvertently muted. So if we can get you to unmute, we'll reintroduce Brittany Rhodes.
Hey, Brittany, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ronnie. How are you today?
I was on your website earlier today. I absolutely love what you are doing. Give us the background to Black Girl Magic.
Thank you so much. So Black Girl Magic is, at its core, it's a movement, but for brevity's sake, it is the first and only monthly subscription box designed to increase math confidence and decrease math anxiety, with a focus on girls who we are, I think I all know, have had issues with their math confidence more than a boy does, not only, but more than a boy does, with a focus on girls between a 3rd to 8th grade math level.
So with that, Brittany, how does this actually work? And how did you have to change what you were doing because of the pandemic?
So we are largely an e-commerce operation. So we actually, thankfully, did not have a lot of really detrimental changes. The biggest changes we experienced were, of course, the slowdown in postal service. So a few unhappy customers every now and then, but not too many, because they understood that, everything that was going on. So people just go on our website and order. They can subscribe to our box. It is a monthly subscription, much like a HelloFresh or any of those commercials you see where they ship food to the house and the family's cooking and they're very happy. Or people also can purchase a one-time box if they just want to try it out or get it for a family member for the holidays or for their birthday.
What's so fun about this to me is when I was on your website, it seems like too, it's one of those things to engage the kids, because I think a lot of them are zoomed out right now because of all of the classes being remote.
Yes, and that's one of the hallmarks of our product. And we actually launched in 2019, so way before COVID. But the goal was to create a screen-free activity, a screen-free product, just to give kids a break from the screen and to get back to some old school things like reading physical books and playing with physical manipulatives.
Oh my God. So when I was growing up, every Saturday morning was set aside to go to the library and get my new books for the week. Like I used to read constantly. But it does seem to kind of be going away right now. But I love that you're bringing the math into it, because it can be intimidating. But understanding math and science opens up pathways to futures, and we need to get the kids engaged in loving these subjects early on as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's been data coming out recently about, we already know about summer learning loss in general in a normal climate around math and reading, and math tends to be slightly higher than reading in terms of the loss. But now with COVID, there's even been some projections that kids are going to be losing up to a year. And when we say losing, we don't mean like, oh, they're going to be so behind. It's just they're going to be losing what they've already learned, which of course is not the goal. We want them to maintain and strengthen, not lose. And so the box allows them an opportunity to really brush up on those basics and keep those at the forefront.
Brittany Rhodes with I have in my notes here, it's like Brittany. Is that how you said it, Brittany?
Yes, you said it perfectly. Kind of like Tiffany. Right?
Brittany.
We say Tiffany. It's the same it's in the same vein there.
Well, Brittany Rhodes with us. She's the founder for Black Girl Magic. This is so fun to me though, but what is your background? How did you get attracted into the math world?
So I am born and raised Detroiter and the daughter of a retired Detroit principal. My mom was a principal for almost 20 years here in the city. And, education was just always a big deal in our house. It was really a non-negotiable. And I just loved school. I loved to learn. And I loved math. Just from the beginning of time, I don't remember a time where I didn't love math. It was always my favorite subject in school. And the more I get into Black Girl Magic and running my business, the more I kind of can identify why. And that's because math matches very much with my personality as a kid. I was very much a rule follower, very analytical, and it just kind of worked. And I went to college in Atlanta. I graduated from Spelman College and I received my Bachelor of Science in Mathematics. And then I went on to Pittsburgh and got my MBA at the Tepper School of Business at Carnegie Mellon. And at that time, I thought I wanted to go into the consumer packaged goods world and do brand management. But of course, life had a different path. So I had a few other jobs and things that I did over time. And then I ended up coming back home to Detroit. I was gone for 10 years. And I came back home because I was tired of defending Detroit in other places. People had really the meanest things to say, when they would find out where I was from. And I had a great childhood, a great upbringing, and I wanted to come back home and help be a part of the solution. So I moved back home about 9 years ago, and I just dove headfirst into the nonprofit world. I worked for Focus Hope, and then my most recent job before I left to start my business, I was the director of community engagement for the Belle Isle Conservancy for almost 4 years, right after state management, helping, navigate some of the controversy around that. And I've always been a tutor. So while I was doing all these things, I was a math tutor on the side. It was kind of like my side hustle, my gig, but also my passion. And when I noticed over the years that a lot of my students, particularly the middle and high school students, when they would come to me needing help with, say, algebra or geometry, and we would start digging into the work, it actually wasn't algebra or geometry that they were really struggling with. It was basic mathematics. So the part where you got to divide by a fraction or multiply by a negative number, and they haven't quite mastered what to do there, it just makes everything else feel so hard. It's like, just throw the whole subject away. And so I wanted to do something about that. And I was really in love with the subscription box model because math anxiety is a thing, and it's not something that you just get over overnight. You have to work at it consistently. You can't just have one great math experience and then, oh, now you're healed. It takes time. And so the subscription box model allowed me to do that.
It really is a great model. My brother-in-law is a math teacher as well, and I really worry about so many of these students, especially in cities such as Detroit and Pontiac, that are being remote taught right now, because let's just admit, there's old math and there's new math. And I remember when my nephew was like in 5th grade, I'm like, what is this? I had no clue. I'm like, no, we're going back. 1 + 1 is 2. So what is that gap? Like, we laugh about it as adults because we're like, hey, no, we're going back to old school math. But really, there's going to be, I think, that big gap for some of the kids as they get back into the classrooms as well.
Yeah, so some of that, the conversation we have, especially for those of us, adults talking about new math. So, that was when Common Core was introduced. And depending on who you talk to, so some math teachers and math practitioners, they say, well, that's actually not new math. That's actually going back to how math was taught or how it was introduced, and then we came and messed it up, basically. So it's really just a different approach, because one of the big things that kids have to have mastery in is place value, and we were seeing that place value mastery was not where it needed to be, and so then that it has a trickle down effect and causes issues in other areas. And so that was Common Core. One of the goals was to get back to those basics and really help kids visualize math in a different way. So funny enough, so some of my students, when I first started tutoring here in Detroit a few years ago, a lot of my kids had Common Core homework, and I would have to excuse myself for a couple minutes and go on Google and teach myself how to do it that way. But now I'm seeing it sometimes with my students, but not all the time. For me, in my box, I include a math activity booklet each month for both 3rd to 5th and 6th to 8th, depending on which box family is ordering. And I don't do any curriculum. I don't do any I just want a kid to access math in the way that makes sense to them. So I do provide an answer key each month, but it's really just, okay, how do you look at this problem? And here are multiple ways to approach the problem, but never like, oh, you must do it this way, because that sometimes, can really take a shot at a child's math esteem if they're being told you did it wrong because you did it a different way, but it actually was right. How does that make somebody feel? So I try to shy away from all of those things, but I also have been trying to understand why things are the way they are so I can explain it to my children.
Well, Brittany, I will say, I think that you can probably come up with a second line of revenue stream by having one of these kits for adults and for the parents as well.
Yeah, and we do include a caring adult guide. And I've had, oh my goodness, so many adult women pre-COVID when we would be at events, they would come up and say, where were you when I was 12? Or I needed you, 20 years ago. And I say, hey, we don't discriminate. You can order for yourself too.
But I will say, there is a lot of importance in this as well, because it goes beyond just getting good grades in school. It's also about putting them on a pathway of success for their futures.
Absolutely. And for kids to just see how math exists in the real world. I think part of my business is my chip on my shoulder from all the times, I've heard my students say, well, I don't need this. When am I going to use this? I don't need math to do X, Y, Z. And it's like, whatever X, Y, and Z is, you actually do need math, even if you don't want to go into STEM. If you want to be an architect, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a pastry chef, if you want to be a news reporter, basic math is going to show up in some kind of way. And I even have some students who are interested in the military, and they kind of think, they can just walk in and, be in the Army or be in the Navy. And it's like, no, you got to take a test. And guess what's on that test? A lot of math, the math that you learned in elementary and middle school. And if you are not taking it seriously now, it's going to come back and bite you later.
I will say, I am so wishing I would have paid so much closer attention to the stat class I had to take in college. We weren't allowed to use the calculator.
Yeah.
It was one of the hardest classes. In fact, I started out as an economics. I wanted to do international business, and then micro econ. I was like, forget it. I'll go into something else. I'm more creative anyway. But it really is about that math and understanding it. And it comes into so many different aspects of life. It's just understanding where that is as well. With that though, where do you hope to take this business going forward?
Well, that's a wonderful question. So as I mentioned, the subscription box is focused on 3rd to 8th grade math, and we serve people of all races and ethnicities, and we want to continue doing that. But of course, we wanted to create a product where a girl, especially a girl of color, could very clearly see herself in the math star seat in a world where she doesn't often feel that way. And we have a lot of data and research to back that up. And we recently launched a kindergarten through 2nd grade box. It's not a subscription, it's more of a one-time bundle, because we were getting so many parents of younger kids asking us, well, what about my kindergarten? What about my 1st grader? So we do have that available. And we have been entertaining a boy box, and that actually was one of our big projects for 2020. But of course, COVID happened, so it fell to the wayside. So we are looking at a boy box, and also other products and experiences. We were doing workshops before COVID. We've had a chance to do some virtual workshops. We love to do more of those. And I'm actively working on a few children's books around math confidence mindset, so we can get the kids earlier and earlier, believing that they're math people and that they have what it takes to perform math at a high level. So definitely stay tuned. We have a lot in the pipeline.
So because of the pandemic, has it actually helped your business in a way, because schools are remote right now, and this gives kids, and especially girls, a new way of learning?
Yes, it really has. We saw, so last summer, in the thick of the beginning of this thing, summer is typically a slow time in general for the subscription box industry. And we saw one of the largest growths, but I think it was between May and June, that we had ever seen before in the summer. And we were just like, whoa, what's happening? And then on top of that, we also have our B2B channel, where we do partner directly with schools, districts, and youth serving organizations, and we do bulk orders for them. And we have been seeing, more interest in that. It kind of died down at the beginning of COVID, but as things somewhat, I don't even know if I want to use the word normalized, but as schools kind of were figuring out their next steps, now we're having more conversations. So yeah, we definitely saw a lot of growth, a lot of interest, parents and teachers. We do have teachers who subscribe as well and use it in their classrooms. They were just like, we just need something different. We need a new way to approach this and to make it fun. Every box we feature a different woman mathematician. So there's not just math, it's like history and reading and ELA and all of these other cross-curricular opportunities. And so we do a real world theme every month. So it was just really this opportunity to step outside of like what we think math is and to approach math from a fun and interesting way. And we definitely saw a lot of growth because families, were looking for something to do and looking for something to keep their kids not only productively busy, but also engaged in learning.
What is the monthly cost? And if someone is interested, how can they find out more about the product?
So the subscription boxes are $39.95 a month plus shipping, and then of course tax for Michigan residents. And all of our information is on our website, blackgirlmathgic.com, and we're also on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
Well, Brittany Rhodes with us. She's the founder of Black Girl Magic. We are so lucky that you came back to Detroit. Thank you for doing so.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
We need so many people like you and more to come back to the state of Michigan, and also extend our gratitude to, I believe you said it was your mother who was a principal in DPS?
Yeah. Well, she was in the charter system, but she did work in DPS for many years as well.
Oh my gosh, I bet she has so many stories.
Yes, she does.
Well, we are so lucky to have you back in the community, and we wish you continued success with your company and the project as well. We hope it continues to grow. And we need positive stories such as yours right now. So thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Ronnie.
It's great having you. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, Brian Calley will be joining us. He's the president for the Small Business Association of Michigan.
Perry tested positive for COVID-19. Emma was exposed to a friend who's positive. Willa's waiting on test results. After any contact with COVID-19, or if you test positive, stay home for at least 10 days. If you live with others, keep your distance and wear a mask. Help Michigan contain COVID-19. Visit michigan.gov/containcovid.
COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries. But you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. MyBridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
This interview at all? Hey, we want to say thank you for taking time out of your Friday to be with us here on the Megacast. You can always catch us Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. If you have Comcast, channel 15, tune us into 99 on AT&T, but you can also tune us into the radio 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And also thank you today to the West Bloomfield Clerk's Office for allowing us to live stream today's edition of the Megacast on their Facebook page. And all of these platforms allows us to be just that, the Megacast, because we try to bring you this information in the long interview format, because it's important information that we want to share with the community. And with that, let's go ahead and bring in Brian Calley. He's the president for the Small Business Association of Michigan. Great to have you with us again here on the show, Brian. Thank you. I'm sure you caught the governor's press conference earlier this morning.
Yeah, so we saw a step in the right direction, firming up the February 1st date for reopening of indoor dining. It's at a smaller percentage than we were hoping for, 25% capacity. And also a curfew on bars and restaurants of 10 o'clock at p.m. So they have to close at 10 o'clock p.m. That will start on February 1st. It'll go for 3 weeks and then be reviewed at that point for consideration of some changes. So it is a positive step in the right direction. I know a lot of businesses have been, restaurants, especially those whose primary focus is service and atmosphere. It doesn't really translate well to takeout and delivery. They really need indoor dining. Without that, they don't have anything.
Yeah, because we have to remember, for some of these businesses, even so 25% capacity, some may say it's still not worth it for me to bring in a crew and try to staff the operation. Are you hearing any pushback on the numbers, or is it pretty much, hey, let's try to do what they want us to do, and then at that end of that 3 weeks, let's hope that we can maybe push to get the capacity limit lifted a little bit more?
The answer will be different for every single business. Their model, some of them are going to be able to cash flow based on this, and they can kind of scale down the effort. But for those who have high overhead, I don't think this really does very much for them. I mean, I think it still keeps them in a position where they're at risk of closure or catastrophic failure. Thankfully, the Paycheck Protection Program funding from the federal government has come online more broadly this week. We've heard from many businesses that they have already received their approval, have scheduled closings, and I know that'll make a huge difference as it did last year.
Can you dive into more of the details behind the PPP? Because I know the first year that it came out, there was a lot of backlash because there were bigger companies that were able to get some of this money. But I think because of that, it really has been streamlined for some of these smaller mom and pop shops. But on top of that, a lot of them are saying it's still hard to get this money. Can you fill us in on what is actually happening through the process?
Well, it's working a lot smoother than it did the first time. So the system was already built last year. They're just using it again. It works through your bank or credit union as long as they're an SBA certified lender, which most of them are. And so the way it works is they'll give you 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. And that's either from 2019 or 2020. You can take your pick which one you want to use to maximize the amount that you can get. It's done as a loan, but as long as you spend 60% of the proceeds on payroll and you have a longer period of time to expend the money as well, that loan will get forgiven. And in other words, it converts into a grant. If you're a restaurant or in the hospitality industry, you can get 3.5 times your payroll. But there's a couple differences in terms of qualifications. Last time it was you could get all the way up to $10 million and 500 employees. Now they're limiting it to $2 million, no more than 300 employees, which is meant to address that concern before about larger companies getting too much of the money. And then also, it is necessary to show that you have experienced a loss in your sales compared to the previous year. So you need to be able to show that in at least one quarter of 2020, your sales were down 25% or more as compared to 2019. So if you show your revenues have taken a hit, then you'll qualify. If you have the type of business that your revenues have gone up during this pandemic, like for example, there's some like drive-through restaurants, fast food restaurants that have record sales. They're not going to qualify for this money. It's meant to help those who have taken the biggest hit.
And that's an important part to point out. There are some businesses that are actually doing pretty well, if not better, during the pandemic than what they were doing before. But we do seem to be focused on some of those smaller businesses. But also, we forget about industries such as dry cleaners and some of these other industries is that as well. So I will say, I have to ask you, what has this been like for you? Because, you were a politician before, but now you're coming into this role. How have those two entities merged, or have they at all? Has your experience helped you in your new position? Because are you a part of the conversations behind the scenes at all with our elected leaders in the decision-making for some of these companies?
The Small Business Association of Michigan has always represented businesses at the state capitol and at the U.S. Capitol. So part of what we do is advocacy, and that has grown a lot over the last year. It went from a component of what we do to really a centerpiece of what we do for our members, because that ongoing advocacy of in terms of feedback on the impact the orders are having and what needs to change for the future is pretty big. So my background and experience lends itself well to that, but it's also about best practices in compliance and translation of the information. A big part of what we do is, and what I do, is to take the government speak and try to explain it in a way that somebody who doesn't have that background and experience might be able to more easily comply with. So yeah, it felt like home right away. It's kind of a full circle thing for me to be back in a role that is so focused, or small business is such a central part of it, and so I've enjoyed it, even at a time when the intensity of the work is a lot higher than it's ever been.
Oh, I bet it's not a 9-to-5 job for you, but they are so lucky to have you and have someone with your experience and your background to help navigate during this time right now, more so than ever. But with that too, the Bowling Alley Association recently announced that they were going to be launching, or they have filed another lawsuit, this time in federal court. And I thought it was a very interesting standpoint that they were taking, was like basically eminent domain. But we've seen so many other industries file similar lawsuits and they've been shot down by the courts. What are your thoughts on that lawsuit and that argument of eminent domain? If you're taking over my business, shouldn't you have to compensate me for it?
Yeah, I think that's it. And actually, it's a great analogy where, normally if government takes something from somebody for a broad public good, then there's compensation for it. And that's the claim that is being made in this lawsuit. And now, whenever you sue a government, it's an uphill battle. I mean, that's the odds are stacked against you in just the way that the system works. What I find really interesting about this lawsuit, though, in particular, is that they're asking questions that have not been asked before in previous lawsuits. But there's been a lot of lawsuits. Some of them have been successful. You might remember that there was a lot of legal action involving Carl Menke, who was a barber from Owasso, and he ended up winning his the series of court actions that really questioned his ability to continue even in business. And an interesting dynamic is that the lawyer, Dave Kallman, that represented the Owasso barber, is the lawyer who's representing the bowling alleys in this case. So a very talented lawyer. I happen to know him, and very creative and talented, and it has put some interesting constitutional questions on the table. I think that if they do have the desire and the wherewithal to push this up through the system, they likely won't get relief in a lower court, because no matter what the answer is, it will get appealed. But as they push it up through the system, these are interesting questions that do not have obvious answers to them, at least not in terms of case law. So I'm following this one very closely.
Yeah, I really, as soon as I saw that, I was like, I'm surprised someone didn't come up with that earlier as well. But a lot of this also has to do with which judge you get your case in front of. I think for the general public, they don't understand how some of these issues can play out differently in front of different judges as well.
Yeah, the judge that you get counts for a lot, but really that in that first step, it's almost certainly going to be appealed. And then at the Court of Appeals, you get a draw of judges. So it's kind of a random process for which ones you get. That would count for a lot too. But ultimately, this is the sort of thing that could end up at the Supreme Court, or it could be that that the vaccination process ends up really accelerating once the new, they're probably the third and fourth providers of vaccines will come online in a few, over the course of the next month or month and a half. And, at that point, the acceleration of that process and reaching herd immunity seems like it's more in reach. So sometimes that sort of thing tends to cure the lawsuits, but we'll see. This one does not depend on current closures. In the past, there's been lawsuits that have said, hey, does the state have the authority to close down my business? This lawsuit is not asking that. What they're saying is that the state took my business for a public purpose, and therefore I deserve compensation for that. Totally different question, and one that maybe will work itself through the process regardless of restrictions and reopenings of the future.
It really is fascinating to watch how this plays out within the court system as well. And I would imagine people are going to be watching this from across the country as well. Brian Calley with us here on the Megacast. He's the president for the Small Business Association of Michigan. I was on your website a little bit earlier today, and I saw the section on call to action, where your organization is trying to get some of these businesses involved in being a part of their voice for the Small Business Association. Do you want to tell us more about call to action?
One of the secrets to our success in being influential in the process, it's not because people pick up the phone when I call, it's because we have active members, and we provide ways for those members to directly engage with the decision makers. So if it's a message that we needed to send to members of Congress, for example, for deductibility of Paycheck protection proceeds on their federal returns, then we can organize and push thousands of communications that way. So it might be the state legislature, it might be the governor for different state level issues, and that's one of the real keys to what we do is to not just provide a voice for small business, but to give small business a seat at the table. And nobody can tell the story for the difference that a small business makes locally, and the impact that state and federal actions have on small businesses than the small business owner themselves.
With that, what is the outlook for some of our small businesses here in the state of Michigan? We know the big businesses are going to survive, the box stores, the Targets, the Costco's, but it's the small businesses that are already folding up shop. I went to get my eyebrows done last week. I pull up, they're closed. It was a one-person shop. She opened it up, but you're seeing these empty storefronts more and more and more. What is going to be the long-term effect on our economy here in the state of Michigan?
Unfortunately, we know that there have already been catastrophic business failures, and they tend to affect the smaller companies more than anybody else. So the smaller you are, the more vulnerable in some ways, and so the industry matters or counts for a lot. So we know restaurant and hospitality, anybody who operates around meetings and gatherings of people, or if your business model depends on office workers going into the office, then it doesn't really matter if you're allowed to open because your market's not there anymore. So some businesses can transition, but in some of them, it's the world has changed in such a fundamental way and so quickly that they are at risk at closing up for good. So, but there clearly there are some businesses whose business model and what they do just happen to work out better for a pandemic environment than others. So we know that some are doing okay. We know that some are largely unaffected since the spring, broad spring closures last year. But our focus needs to be though on those on that 15 or 20% that are dramatically impacted by this set of closures, and it's going to tend to be those businesses that are smaller, that have fewer than 25 employees, and unfortunately for that business owner and their employees, but especially for that business owner, that's often their entire life. It's their retirement, it's their life savings, it's their reputation, it's their experience. It's like everything that they have is wrapped up in that one enterprise. And when that is taken away from them, it's different than just losing your job. It's losing everything else that touches your financial security along with that job.
And along with that too, we're losing, some of the communities are losing their identity as more and more of these businesses close up shop, because these small businesses, especially the shops and the restaurants, they make up the uniqueness of some of the communities. And when that goes away, the community can really suffer as well. So with that though, Brian, before we let you go, I have to ask you, spent your life as a politician. Any thoughts on some of the events that we've seen and witnessed over the past month? And then also with the swearing in of the new president going forward, you want to share anything?
Well, it was really heartbreaking to see what happened at the Capitol and several of the things that have happened in terms of threats against our public officials here in our state. It's not just uncalled for, but it's completely unacceptable. And it's the sort of thing that I think as a society in one voice, we just have to say from across the entire political spectrum that we can't tolerate violence. We can't tolerate a system that throws into question the way that our the fundamental tenets of our system of government here, our democratic republic. So this is I think this is something that we really do need to ensure and all commit ourselves to ensuring never happens again.
But with that, Brian, are you a Lions fan?
Am I? Well, how about this? I'm an Oakland University fan. No, of course, I'll hang in with them. I'll go ahead and I'll take the bait, and I'll get enthusiastic and excited and optimistic about the future, and I'll probably get my heart broken again.
Well, fingers crossed though, just like 2020 is behind us. Same with the Lions, that season, and it's behind us. 2021, vaccine brings hope and a new coach brings hope. This could be the year for Michigan and the Detroit Lions.
Hey, I'll bite. Why not?
Well, we wish you the best in 2021, and we hope it's a much better future for so many of our businesses. But I know that you've probably been working tirelessly around the clock as well to try to help some of these businesses. So thank you for your effort, but also thank you for being with us. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ronnie.
That's pretty much going to wrap it up for the Friday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Sorry, we kind of ran out of time. Want to talk about Bernie Sanders and all of his memes, but also the Lions' new coach. But we'll let Tyler think about that over the weekend, and we'll continue that conversation on Monday. This has been the Oakland County Megacast.